everybody, Ben here for the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to the monthly meta. This is where we get together and we have a look at two things in competitive Blood Bowl: what's legal and what's lethal. So the whole point of this series is that if you're jumping back into Blood Bowl or you're just starting out, we go through everything that's available for the game and really talk through what you need to know and what you don't need to bother with too much. And then also, if you are a competitive tournament player, we go through some of the NAF stats and let you know who's winning at the moment or what's lethal. So first up, what's legal? This is where we talk through everything that is available in Blood Bowl and whether or not it is important to you. So if you're going to be joining a league or going to a tournament, what do you need to know about and what you don't need to worry too much about. Blood Bowl is getting a little bit bloated now. There are extra rulebooks out there, there are Spike magazines out there, so it's worthwhile checking through this. Now, the first thing you are going to need is the rulebook. Now, the great thing so far is that we do have just one rulebook. So if you are playing in a Blood Bowl tournament or you're playing in your local league, there is only one rulebook for standard Blood Bowl. There are a couple of other versions of Blood Bowl, but we'll come to that in a second. So the rulebook is the rulebook is the rulebook. And then we've got a series of Spike magazines. Now, Spike magazines are army books if you have played in a different version of a Games Workshop game, but there's not a huge amount of detail in them. And that's the great thing about the Blood Bowl game, is that you can get the rules, you can get the special rosters and the special rules. You can find them somewhere on the internet. Maybe even on this channel. So if you are thinking, oh, kind of fancy a Norse team, I wonder what the roster's like, then you can go to this channel and we have a breakdown of the roster. If you go, I want to take this team to a tournament, then you can go to this channel and you can check out some example tournament rosters and we talk kind of through what you can take. But I love the Spike magazines, and they are so packed full of flavor and story and ideas, and in some cases some really cool special optional rules. So, Spike 11 Necromantic, to me, is still the best Spike magazine. It's got the roster for the Necromantic team, but that's already in the rulebook. You've got the rules for a few extra star players in there, so the Ghost Chainsaw, Frankenstein, who can play for Old World Alliance, Old World Classic kind of teams. There's and Wilhelm Chaney. So there's 3 special star player rules in the Necromantic Spike. There's also some cool wizard stuff and an example league with special rules, but it is all extra. The Necromantic roster is available in the rulebook, and those star player rules are available elsewhere, like I said, on the internet. Now, Spike 12 added very much nothing. Cool flavor. So if you want to play a nobility team or a Black Orc team, it's got some great, background to them, and it's worth a read. But otherwise, I think it adds some ball rules and some optional rules that you really don't need to worry about. So if you are planning on playing Nobility or Black Orc, you really only need the rulebook. But if you want to get some inspiration, it's a pretty good and cheap read. Now, Spike 13 is the Khorne roster. So if you want to play Khorne, Spike 13 is a good thing to pick up. It's got the background, it's got a little bit of play guides, but it's got the actual core Khorne roster, and it's got some great star players for them as well. We've got Max Spleenripper, the chainsaw player. We've got Grashnak Blackhoof, who is just an absolute beast of a Minotaur, and there's Scylla and Fingrim, which is basically a star player boosted Bloodsport. So 3 star players in that, along with the roster. So if you want to play Khorne in this edition, while you can get everything online, it is easier just to pick up the Spike magazine. But with most leagues, you'll have a spreadsheet or a roster that you can build on if you're using tour play. So they're not necessarily necessary, but they are definitely good fun to have a read through. Which leads us to the most recent Spike as of this video being recorded, which is the Norse Spike. And the roster is in there, and we've got some star players in there as well. You've got Ivar, you've got Thorson, the guy who's throwing the barrels, and then you've got Skrog Snowpelt, who is the Yeti star player. So 3 star players in the Norse book as well. Again, the teams come with the rules. The star players actually come with the rules. So the Spike magazines are really unnecessary, but I love them so much. They're a source book. They're very small. They're not very expensive, but they are a really good read. There's some nice inspirational fluff in there. You've got some background. You've got some stories. You've got a few helpful bits, and you've just got a few fancy rules. If you are playing any of these teams, then it's definitely worth picking up the Spike. If you're not playing any of these teams, I still think it's worth picking up the Spike, because if you love Blood Bowl, you probably love the world, and the Spike magazines are all about the world, and quite frankly, I think we need a little bit more of that. So, as of recording, I'm hoping in 45 minutes that we'll be having the Amazon announcement, but not quite there yet. So Amazons will be sitting here at Spike 15, hopefully this time next month. So in addition to what I would call the core books, that is the rulebook and the Spike magazines, there are some other cool publications out there. So we're in format 14A at the moment, and that's what I called it. We got Spike 14. And A means we've got an addendum, which is the FAQ. So there's a few other things here that you need to be aware of if you're coming back into Blood Bowl or just starting out. Rulebook, Spike magazines, really straightforward. The rulebook contains 21 teams and almost every star player. The Teams of Legend PDF, which I'm assuming is going to be adjusted soon, has got the Teams of Legend in. Now, the Teams of Legend are a series of teams that Games Workshop used to produce, but haven't made new models for in the last 10-20 years. Okay, so currently the Teams of Legend are Amazons, but we know they're coming soon with a revamp. We've got Chaos Dwarves, and we've got Tomb Kings, and we've got Vampires, and we've got High Elves. So we're expecting that PDF to get updated when the Amazons arrive. Then it's High Elves, Tomb Kings, Vampires, and Chaos Dwarves left in the Teams of Legend PDF. Now, Games Workshop sell those teams every now and again. They do a back order, made to order system, but there's a ton of cool third-party teams out there available for you. Grebo, Punga, STLs you can print, tons of teams out there. Fanath are a great one. If you're looking for a specific team, have a look at some of our videos because we cover it basically. Then there is the NAF Slann team. So the Slann team, if you've played Blood Bowl 2, the Kislev team, the jumping around team, right, basically, was based on Slann, which are space frogs. Now, Slann existed in the fluff, but they never got an official Games Workshop roster. But the NAF, which is essentially a worldwide player association for Blood Bowl, had some community rules where the Slann team was basically made semi-official. So if you're joining a league or you're going to a tournament, it's definitely worth checking out the Slann team roster, because even though they are very unpopular, I guess, because they're not very mainstream, they're a great team. Everyone has pogo sticks, so you can bounce around and jump around, and it's just such an exciting team to play with and a real challenge to play against. So NAF Slann team, again, the link will be in the comments below. Then you've got the FAQ. So Games Workshop have got a 6th monthly cycle of FAQ for Blood Bowl, where they go in there and change up some of the rules. They clear up most of stuff, and then they tweak a couple of interesting bits almost every single time. So the last drop was May, the next one will be November, and there's a couple of things I guess to point out. The FAQ document for the most part clarifies some rules interactions. Some you may be surprised by, others you won't be, but there are 2 star player cost changes which are the biggest things to call out. Hackflem is now 210 and Morg is 380. So if you've got the rulebook, if you've got your Spike or whatever where those players are listed, their costs have gone up in league and in tournament play. So that is probably the biggest thing to take away from there. Otherwise, everything is a rules interaction. They're definitely worth going through, or go back and just watch our videos when we talk about the FAQ, as we kind of do a good job, I think, of delving into some corner cases that you may not think about. And sometimes it's just fun to get upset by things. Then you've got the star player downloads. So star players are in the rulebook. There's 20 odd of them. Then you get the rules if you buy the model from Forge World. You get the rules for most of the star players in your team when you buy a Spike magazine, for example. But there are other ones that have been released outside of that. In fact, I think most of the star players that have been released recently get the PDF put up online because it comes with them. So actually, most of the star players that are out there that are not in the rulebook will have a PDF for them. So you've got the rulebook. You've got PDFs to star players, you've got extra teams here, you've got the FAQ. That's basically the biggest crunch part of Blood Bowl. Then there was the 2021 Almanac, which combined a bunch of the Spike magazines and star player rules and some White Dwarf articles and things like that. It's a great thing to have combined. You don't need it if you've got everything else, but it's a really useful almanac, and I expect we'll see one again this year. Okay, so that was the core stuff that you will need and you'll come across if you're going to play League or Tournament. Basically, that's everything that's what I would say competitive or official, right? That's the starting point. Then there's a whole bunch of fun extra stuff if you want more Blood Bowl. And remember, more Blood Bowl is more better. Death Zone 2021 is a chunky book full of just optional rules for Blood Bowl. It is awesome. If you've played Blood Bowl for a bit or you want more stuff, that is the place to go. We've got giants, we've got build your own mercenaries, there's a whole bunch of inducements and wizards for your teams. The rules for Blood Bowl 7s are in there, which is a smaller scale version of Blood Bowl. I actually think it's the best way to play. 7 players on the pitch, the turns are quicker, their halves are shorter, there's 6 turns instead of 8. It's a really great way to play Blood Bowl, absolutely love it. Death Zone is full of optional rules. Now, this is the bit where we start to talk through what's going to be legal in the event you're going to or the league you're joining. Most tournaments will not feature this stuff. They want to keep it as accessible as possible. So the first stuff will probably be included in the tournament. This stuff is going to be less likely to be so. But when it comes to your league, with the exception of mercenaries from Death Zone 2021, because they can be gamed a little bit, everything there is likely to be featured in your league. Do check, but it's going to be in the way of how are we using special stadiums, special weather rules. They'll probably say do it if you want, don't worry about it if you don't. If you're looking at the extra inducements, most of them will be legal, so definitely worth having a brew through there. You don't need to know about it, but it's fun extra stuff, and that is very much what this part of the list is about. Then there are special play cards and pitches. When you buy a pitch from Games Workshop, it will have special rules for it in the back, and in the most recent spikes, the pitch rules have been on there as well. And the special play cards as well. I've lost my little deck, but you can buy them when the team's released, and if you want to include them in your game, it will add a fun narrative twist. You won't see them very often in a competitive environment because they can be very swingy, and pitches tend to make things more complicated and just worse for everybody most of the time. So it's definitely a narrative fun thing. I wouldn't worry too much about it if you're not going to look into them. Special play cards, really popular in some places, really unpopular in others, but they are in the core rules. So if you, like I said, check with your tournament, check with your league. Probably won't be seeing them, but they are out there and they're really good fun. Now, talking of things that are out there and are really good fun, the referee rules featured in White Dwarf 466, I think, are also in the almanac. I could be wrong about that. But we've got a couple of videos where it covers basically what the rules are. You put the referee on the pitch, and as you know, if it's on the pitch, it can end up in a ditch. You can blitz the referee, and therefore you can't get sent off for fouling and stuff like that. It's a really fun and, again, narrative element to the game. This stuff here is great for just adding things. If you're playing casually, you want to have fun and just expand the Blood Bowl rules. They all add time to the game, which I think is probably the most important call out here. Is it does add complexity, it does add time, but if you've got time and you're willing to just chill out and play a game with extra nonsense, this is great stuff. Then there's Dungeon Bowl. So we talked about Blood Bowl 7s being in Death Zone 2021. Then there's Dungeon Bowl. And as I've said a billion times, Dungeon Bowl takes the carnage of Blood Bowl and places it underground in a dungeon. There are wizards, there are teleporters, there are treasure chests, and it is just a whole heap of fun. It is a box set, and in there are the rules for it and the tiles and everything you need. The great thing about Dungeon Bowl, though, is you don't really need the book or the tiles if you want to make your own dungeon, and in fact we sell dungeon maps for Dungeon Bowl, so if you want to try Dungeon Bowl out, actually for 20 quid you can get all the tokens you need and the maps as well. So actually, love Dungeon Bowl. We've got a series, you can go watch it, where we play just a whole heap of that, and we ran a great tournament earlier this year with 40 something players, and it's just a great way, a great different way to play. There are also 8 teams in there, Colleges of Magic, 8 new rosters that are a combination of players from other races. You will more than likely not see them available for use in Standard Blood Bowl, unless you're coming to Bonehead Bowl this year, in which case we're making them eligible. But if you go into League, if you go into a regular tournament, the Dungeon Bowl stuff, completely unnecessary. You won't see the college teams there, but they are there to be played in Dungeon Bowl, and it is an absolute ton of fun. Okay, so that's everything that's out right now, and then we're looking ahead. So it's August, and the Amazon team has been spoiled. We don't know the full rules, we don't know when they're coming out, but we do know stuff is coming. So what's next for Blood Bowl? What should you be keeping an eye out for? The Amazon release. We are probably going to see a pitch. We are definitely seeing a team, and we're definitely seeing 2-star players. We've got Boa Constrictor, the snake player, you can already get from FNAF games, and Estelle Leverneau, which is a frog loving swamp witch who plays for Amazons, and we think likely to be the case Slann and Lizardman as well. We're not sure what other teams these 2-star players will play for, and we normally see 3-star players when a team is released, so be on the lookout for a 3rd Amazon release star player too. So a new team, the Amazon roster is being revamped. It's already got one positional, the catcher is now gone, and a new positional has been introduced, the blocker. We're not sure what frequency, what skill set this has got, so it's about to be a really exciting point where a pretty popular team in Amazons is about to get a bit of a shake-up. Few star players will be out as well, and I imagine we'll have some very shiny dice and a cool pitch to go with it. There are a couple of star players who we're waiting on models for. We've got Bryce the Slice, who is the undead chainsaw star player. Think of Ghost Rider, but without the motorbike, because they've got chainsaw instead. From Spike 11, still haven't got the model for this guy. And Grashnat Blackhoof, who is an absolute monster of a Minotaur, whose rules were in Spike 13, the Corn one. 2 awesome star players, still waiting on models for those, but it can happen and we can wait a while. But the cool thing about Blood Bowl is that you don't have to wait for the Games Workshop official models. There are a ton of alternatives out there, and if you want to know more about star players, whether they're out and they've got models or not, actually watch our star player spotlights. We talk through the rules, we talk through the stats, we talk through what they're good for, what they're not good for, and then we talk through some alternate models if Forge World is not to your taste. Okay, so that basically summarizes what's legal, what's out there at the moment. But I guess the final thing we'll say is just check with your league. If you're going to be joining a league, check with your league commissioner, right? Check with the guys who go to the league. If you're going to a tournament, check with the tournament organizer. Just say, hey, what's legal, what's not allowed at the moment in this tournament. The beautiful thing about Blood Bowl is that it is really feudal, okay? Every Blood Bowl tournament, every Blood Bowl league has got a slightly different take on what they want to push versus what they don't want to push. So we tend to include a ton of rules wherever possible, unless it's an event we think we want to keep it quite simple. But always check with the TO or the league commissioner, because this is it's a great community, and we want more people to play, and the easier it is for people to join and hang out and take part, the better it is for everybody. Now, that basically covers what's legal. We are going to dive into what's lethal. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at some of the Blood Bowl tournaments that have happened over the last few months and how it's affected the win rates of certain teams. Now, the stats we've got from this are from the NAF, and the NAF is a worldwide Blood Bowl player association that tracks wins and losses for you at the tournaments you go to. It's a really cool way to just be involved. We get some cool data out of it, but it's just a pretty cool way to kind of give back to the community. A chap called Mike, who was the president for the NAF, does this monthly update where he takes all of the data of all the tournaments that have been logged with the NAF and basically updates the win percentages and win stats. So the link to the Tableau that Mike Davies puts together is in the show notes below, so you can go and check it out for yourself. But I have pulled out what I think is the most poignant parts, and we are about to delve in to see competitive Blood Bowl tournaments, remember, not league, what's lethal. And we are going to start with who's done well over the last couple of months. Now, I did skip the July one because of all the whole hospital situation. Didn't really get a chance to film it. So we are catching up with August now. And over the last period, since our last episode of Monthly Meta, we're going to look through which teams have done the best. So let's start with the bottom of the table here. Halflings have dropped 4 spots into last place, a win percentage of 40%, 299 games played. Nurgle have dropped 6 positions into 28th, 40%, 206 games played in the last period. Chaos have clawed their way up a couple of spots to 27th, and Black Orc have dropped down a couple of spots to 26. Black Orc there with a 44% win, and Chaos with a 43% win rate. Now, Chaos have actually got better, but still in the bottom part. Goblins have risen a couple of spots there, and so have Ogres. So Ogres at 24, Goblins at 25, 46% win rate for Ogres and 45% win rate for Goblins. Now this is really good to see because Goblins were in a really bad place for the longest while. They were sitting at 35% win rate, but we've seen Bomber and Fungus drop, and we think that's helping them actually win a bit more. They're still in the bottom 5, but at least there's a chance now. Orcs have dropped 7 spots there, 46% win rate, massive, 741 games. But we've got a pair of absolute massive changes from the last period here. Norse and Undead. Norse dropping 17 spaces, Undead dropping 16 spaces to the bottom third of our table. Norse at 21 with a 47% win rate, and the same win rate at 22 for Undead. So 2 tier 1 teams with a ton of games played dropping basically the majority of the table there. Now, Norse, the new roster's out, and that probably means that there's a lot of players just taking Norse to their first tournaments. Also, it's a kind of brand new roster, so there's going to be a lot of exploration with Norse before they kind of earn their chops. Interesting, however, to see Undead take a massive hit because they are a very popular and very potent team. Okay, so the middle of the table, up 8 spots. Nobility at 20th with 47%. Vampires, who were in the top spot in our last episode, have dropped down to 19. Now, Vampires have not got a huge win percentage normally. They just had a massive spike in that period. Now they're back down there, dropped to 19th with a 47% win rate. Humans up 3 spots to 18 at 48. Wood Elves dropping 12 spots as well, down to 49% in the last period. Wood Elves have had a bit of a spiky time in Blood Bowl 2020. Elves have. Passing didn't get better as we kind of thought it would, and it's led to a lot of the old Edge teams being a little bit more limited and a little bit fairer. Okay, let's say that even a 49% win rate, that means you're going to win most of the amount of games that you lose, so that's not a bad place to be. Snotlings climbing up almost in the top half of the charts here, up to 16, 49% win rate. Chaos Renegades up 3 spots, Necromantic up 3 spots, so Necro at 14 and Renegades at 15. Renegades have stayed very, very strong in the mid-range here. They were historically not a brilliantly rated team, but they have performed really well. Both those teams slap bang in the middle at 50%. As are Skaven. Now, Skaven were historically a tier 1 powerhouse. In this edition, we've seen them be more fairly kind of received. They're hitting 50% win rate, 544 games in the last period at 13th, which is a lucky number for the Skaven team. Lizards have dropped 3 spots to 12, again at 50% win rate, and also at 50% win rate, we've got Khorne, who have climbed the charts up the biggest amount so far, 12 spots up to 11th spot there. Tier 2, 50% win rate, 344 games, so a reasonably popular team doing reasonably well. Which takes us to the top 10 teams in the last period of competitive Blood Bowl for the NAF. 10th spot, we've got Slann climbing up 4 spaces. Now, only 162 games played, which might be the least popular of the teams out there. We'll have a look at that in a second, but I love Slann. They are an edge case team. They've got one thing they do really well, and if you can pull it off, they do pretty good. So 52% win rate in the last period at 10th spot. Elven Union also up 4 spaces, 52% win rate too. Chaos Dwarves up 12 spots here. Now, Chaos Dwarf are a very, very capable team. They just had a bit of a bad period last time. Up 12 spots to 8th though, not bad at all, with a 53% win rate. Exactly the same as the Good Dwarves, Dwarf team. Not that Chaos Dwarves are bad, it's just that they're rather evil because of the whole burning and slavery thing. Dwarves, though, the good kind of boring grudgy guys, up 4 spots to 7th place at 53% win rate, over 500 games registered for Dwarves. Dark Elves have dropped 4 spots down to 6th, 53% win rate. Tomb Kings staying relevant. Probably the biggest surprise of this edition is Tomb Kings staying in the top 10 most of the time, up 3 spots to 5 with a 54% win rate, 344 games played, more popular than Elven Union. You can buy a box of Elven Union. You cannot buy a box of Tomb Kings without going to third party or making your own. So it's nice to see them be popular, and those players are being rewarded. Old World Alliance, still in the top 5. They've dropped one spot, but 56% win rate. Only 198 games played, but they've won over 100 of those, basically. Awesome to see OWA, who got a tier adjustment earlier this year, stay kind of relevant there and in the top 5 still, which is fantastic. High Elves, though, at third spot, climbing up 7 spaces, 57% win rate. High Elves have been in the top 5 for a little while of the all-time standings, and they have outperformed basically all of the other legacy races until this month. Underworld back in it, up to number 2, up 13 spots with a 60% win rate in this last period. Underworld lost a bit of relevance. They kind of got a bit of a hit. The way that their special boosts worked kind of got nerfed a little bit. Only a little bit. They've still got Hack Flame, but he costs more. They can still take skills, but they're tier 1, so they get less skills, and then the way that swarming worked changed up ever so slightly. It hurt them for a period, but they are back at 60% win rate, up 13 spots. And then the biggest change for this month, 11 spot climb for Amazons with a 62% win rate, 346 games played. So this is a really interesting month. Amazons climbing up the charts, getting a 2/3 win rate, basically. Nearly, 346 games played. They're nearly as popular as something like Dark Elves, which is huge, given that Amazons have only really been available third party for the past decade. They've climbed up to the top spot. Now, we're about to see the Amazon roster get changed, so it could be that actually everyone was dusting off their Amazons before the end came, or it was maybe just a bit of a coincidence. But that 62% win rate for the last period for Amazons will be different in the future when the new roster lands. So that is a really interesting matchup and mix-up of the situation here when it comes to competitive Blood Bowl. But the point of this is to say that Amazons, Underworld, High Elves, OWA, Tomb Kings, Dark Elf, Dwarf, Chaos Dwarf, Elven Union and Slann are the top performing teams in Blood Bowl for the last few months. So if you are going to a tournament and expecting to win or expecting to play against other players who are there to win, these are potentially the rosters that you will be facing. Okay, so that was teams with win rate in the last period. Now we're going to look at the teams with the most games played in the last period. Basically, we can tell you who's winning, and then we can tell you who's popular. So at the bottom here, we've got Vampires and Slann. Slann 28, Vampires 29, Old World Alliance 27, Nurgle 26, Chaos 25, Elven Union 24, Chaos Renegades 23 with 240 games played, High Elves at 22 with 263 games played, and Wood Elves at 21 with 276 games played in the last period. So Old World Alliance, Slann, Elven Union, High Elves, all teams that we saw in the top 10 win percentage are all in the bottom 10 playing like games played quantity over the last period of time. So those teams could be spiking, or some really good coaches could just have a really good idea of how to beat the meta using middle of the table. Nobility at 290, Goblin at 290, and Halflings at 299, 18, 19, and 20th most popular team. Ogres and Snotlings 16, 17 with both 305 games played. Tomb Kings at 14 and Khorne at 15, 340 games. Amazons at 13. So Amazons, who are the number 1 winningest team in the last period, 13th most popular team, record with nearly 350 games. Blackhawks, who are always a popular team, dropping a little bit, I think. 12th spot, though, with 400 games played. Underworld at 11 with 400 games played as well. So Tomb Kings, Amazons, we're seeing a bit of success with those. Ogres, Snotlings, Halflings, and Goblins, all the tier 3 master races, all there slap bang in the middle with only a few games in between, which takes us to the top 10 most popular teams of the last period of Blood Bowl. Dark Elves at 10, Necromantic at 9, Norse at 8 with 460 games. Now Norse, we expected to be popular, new release of a team, new roster, new excitement. Chaos Dwarves there at 7, Dwarf at 6, Skaven at 5 with 544 games. Good job, Skaven. So Skaven there proving that they're fair with a ton of games played and around about a 50% win rate. So if you are playing Skaven or playing against someone who's playing Skaven, see, they are fair. Humans at number 4, Undead at number 3, Lizards at number 2, and Orcs in the last period with the most games, 740 games played. Lizards with 670 and Undead just a couple behind them. So if you are going to a tournament, we've already looked at what's performing really well. Now we're looking at quantity potentially over quality. Orcs, Lizards, Undead, Humans, Skaven, Dwarves, Chaos Dwarf, Norse, Necro, Dark Elf. All the most popular, but really that top 5 is, well, actually top 5, top 6 teams there are definitely likely to appear at a tournament. Now, last tournament we saw a real big spike in Orcs, Black Orcs and Goblin teams because of the new Bomber and new star players. So if you're going to a tournament, you were already probably expecting these races because you were already probably taking one, and you know what? That's not a bad thing at all. Okay, so we've looked at the last period, who was the most popular and who was the most powerful. Now we're just going to have a quick roundup of the to-date game win percentages. There's not a huge amount of change here, as the longer we play over the longer we play of Blood Bowl 2020, the more the stats kind of average out. But Goblins at the bottom there are increasing, getting up ever so slightly there to 40%, up 1%. Chaos 28, Black Orc 27, staying stable. Nurgle lost a percentage down to 45. Ogres at 25. Halflings dropped 3 spots down to 46% win rate there. Vampires did climb up a spot as well. Imperial Nobility staying put at 22. Khorne climbing a couple of spots up and gained a win percentage to 48% there. Okay, middle of the table now. Let's see if your team is here. So Humans and Snotlings both dropped a spot because Old World Alliance, which is not surprising given their performance over the last 2 periods, have knocked themselves up into the realm of averageness in Blood Bowl at 50% win rate. So great to see OWA climbing up that. Could be a bit of learning the roster out there for coaches. Could also be that tier adjustment. They went down to tier 2 from tier 1, so probably getting a little bit more gold or a little bit more skills when it comes to tournament environment. Renegades at 17, Skaven at 16, Necro 15, Lizards 14, Orcs dropping a percent down to 50% at 13, Norse and Undead both dropping 2 spots and a win percentage down to 51. Which takes us to our top 10. Slann sneaking in there, up 2 spots to 10. Elven Union up 2 spots as well to 9, both at 52% win rate. Wood Elves slip a percentage but stay in 8th place at 52% as well. Dark Elves drop 2 spots, still at 53%, along with Chaos Dwarves and regular Dwarves. Dwarves dropping a spot but staying at 53. Tomb Kings drop a spot down to 4th place but stay at 54% win rate. And Amazons, who have outperformed in this last period, are up 4 places in the all-time chart. Win percentage up to 55%. Still behind the top 2 teams in Blood Bowl, which remain High Elves at 57% and Underworld at 60%. Now, we're not seeing a huge amount of movement in these charts. We are in some cases, I guess, but actually that Underworld used to be 65 and Goblins used to be 35. So we're actually seeing the charts compress a little bit, which is allowing a little bit more of the kind of minor movement that we see. Now, Amazon's up 4%, up 4 spots and 2 win percent is actually pretty big. And I think it's really important that we have a look now. This is all-time winningest, right? This is all-time win percentage. High Elves, Amazons, Tomb Kings, and Chaos Dwarves are all teams of legend, and they are all in the top, nearly top 5, but top 6, right? So in the top 5, we've got 3 legacy teams and Underworld, which are just historically broken when it comes to competitive Blood Bowl. So there's a ton of like the first year of 2020 competitive play where Underworld just were a little bit underpriced. Underworld, underpriced. It's cool. So it'll be interesting to see how Amazon hold on and what happens when they do finally adjust High Elves. But if you look at that, with the exception of Amazons, High Elves and Underworld, every team is 4% up or down, basically at 50%, which is a pretty great environment. And it really does just bring to life the fact that any Blood Bowl team can win against any other Blood Bowl team in any match. It is definitely never a lost cause. Okay, we've talked through what's legal, we've talked through what's lethal. I feel like this next Blood Bowl period is all going to be about Amazons. They are outperforming, but they are about to get adjusted, which is going to be really interesting. So I'm going to wrap up the video, and hopefully, in a few minutes' time, we'll get the announcement. But maybe not. Who knows? Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. Please let me know in the comments if there's anything you want me to see added next time. You guys have been asking for more month-by-month kind of stats, so we're leaning that way. But, hey, let me know if there's anything that we've missed, and make the comments useful for people who are coming back to Blood Bowl or just getting started, because it is a competitive, exciting, ridiculous and fun game with a brilliant community. So thank you very much. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to help support the channel even further, please like and subscribe, or come join us on our Patreon. We have early access to content, we get loads of feedback from you guys, and we try and do competitions as much as we can. Or you can get yourself some Bonehead podcast merch on our Spreadshirt site. So if you want to support a team, especially for the Bonehead Championship, you can pick up a shirt, a mug, things like that. It all helps support the channel, and we really appreciate it. Anyway, links below. Thank you very much. Happy blocking.